Hey all, this is David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be talking about high elves. This is a often requested video, as I've done many other monster ecology or uh, cultural videos on different races for fantasy games. We'll do some sci-fi as well in the future when I'm actually doing that prep. I'm just kind of doing the ones I know well enough that I don't have to actually research because research requires effort and rambling requires almost no effort for myself. So, when we talk about high elves, I tried to highlight the previous races that don't get a lot of play. Ogres, orcs, goblins. You don't see a lot of these guys show up in most games as major players. They're mainly just mooks and goons to be killed, which I think does them all a disservice. Same thing with my men, the lizard men and the bullywugs, the hideous amphibian, as some would know them. That's I didn't come up with that name. That's Aaron's fault, by the way. So don't give me credit for that, amphibian. But we're talking about high elves today. So high elves in my game are one of the most pure races descended from the ancient slaves of the dragon kings, and then later of the serpent folk and the lizard folk. So they've retained a very pure line ever since then, rising up in rebellion against the lizard folk, the serpent men, or the dragon kings. Their mythology tells it several different ways. But rising up in rebellion, these people sought shelter amidst the forest. And high elves in particular stole some of the magical secrets of the serpent folk. So they're the most magical race, aside from the serpent men themselves. So in the forest, they essentially broke off into two different kinds of sub-race, or two different kinds of clans. One being the wood elves, who I'll detail in another video, and one being the high elves, who I'm talking about right now. The high elves and wood elves are different from each other in that the wood elves are largely nomadic, whereas the high elves put down roots, quite literally, as we'll see, put down roots. They stay in one place all year long. So they're best defined by their cities, by their architecture, because their cities are actually massive trees known as alftrees or elf trees. Just gigantic structures rising up above all other trees, 4 times higher than the California redwood. They're so large that the high elves actually build their cities in the boughs of these trees. Each tree is like a full-size metropolis. They're vast cities layered vertically on top of each other with many spiral staircases and sweeping palisades connecting them all, as well as wooden bridges, not rope bridges, but actually bridges grown and carved and sculpted out of the living wood of the alf trees themselves. And this is the same with most of their architecture. It's grown out of the trees. High elves, as I said, are the most magical of all the races, excepting perhaps the serpent man. So these trees really define them. It's a symbiotic relationship between the elves and these trees. And not only do these elf trees provide them with shelter, but they also provide them with food, as the elf tree, being magical, grows every kind of fruit upon them. So the elves have a great vast bounty of fruit to eat on. They're almost fruitarians, which for human beings is a terrible idea. That's really bad for you. Don't be a fruitarian. But for high elves, even and wood elves, I mean, that's just fine. They can handle it. They've adapted over time. So they'll have apples, pears, apricots, oranges, lemons, mangoes. They'll have even berries growing on parts of the tree: strawberries, blueberries, blackberries, mulberries, raspberries. They'll have bananas. They'll have pineapples, coconuts. They'll have even perhaps something like tomatoes they could have growing off of these trees. And if I miss any fruit, just include that into your version of the elf tree. So their society is sculpted by these trees as the trees have been sculpted by their society. And their fashion, let's move on to fashion, since we've talked about food, shelter, let's talk about clothing. So their fashion is very much in high style. As in my world, elves have actually domesticated the silkworm, where no other race has managed to do so. And it's a closely guarded secret of the Silk Guild, exactly where the silk comes from and what produces it. This fabled creature, the silkworm, only whispered of in legends. But this means that elves are very finely attired in silk, and part of their merchant trade, a large part of it comes in the form of this silk, as textiles were tremendously important to medieval economies, and the same will be true of a fantasy economy that is based upon that history. And they tend towards, of course, greens, browns, natural colors, oranges, accented with perhaps some flowers or flower embroidery upon them. In my game, I've typically had elves either go barefoot or have them with very slight silk shoes, almost like slippers, which adds a nice touch to their fashion as well. They also have mithril jewelry. As mithril is generally something that's only known to be worked by the elves. They tend to have a monopoly on those sites to mine it. Now, I haven't delved much into the actual mining of the mithril, so that actually would be something I need to ponder upon before I do this video all over again. But just springing to mind, it could be based upon constructs, or they could have hired some gnomes, which are also known as dwarfs to some, to do that mining for them, or wood elves could come in and do the heavy labor for them as well. So there's a variety of ways that you could play with that as well, since high elves tend to disdain very hard work. At least physical labor. Mental labor is much esteemed among them. Actually, I'll jump back to the cuisine, because in addition to these fruits, which they have for their raw materials, now this allows them to make various things like wine, all kinds of different fruit wines, and daiquiris, as well as jams, jellies, marmalades, so various fruit spreads, as well as, of course, fruit salad, very important to them, both, with various different syrups and without, and with greens. I'm trying to think. Now, they do supplement their diet somewhat with hunting expeditions, and with, of course, trade as well, especially with the wood elves. Well, they're also pretty strong beekeepers, not quite to the degree of the dwarves, as the dwarves really need bees in their life. But the elves do keep bees, and they do produce some honey, although and beeswax as well. Although they also tap the alftrees themselves, and their sap can be rendered down into a delicious syrup, much like maple syrup, or birch syrup. Some people enjoy that as well, mainly in Quebec, I believe. Anyone from Quebec, perhaps Alex Gillette, if he's watching. I know you're not too far from Quebec, up there in Maine. So let me know if you guys have any birch syrup or birch beer up there. I'm trying to think. So yeah, their cuisine is very much fruit-based, very much salad-based, supplemented with some meat, and then a lot of wine as well. I try not to push the physiology as being incredibly different from human physiology, because in my game, all of the races are basically just different breeds of the same species. Just like in real life, I'm largely German, whereas my friend Ikenna, he's from Nigeria, and we're both human beings, but we have very different cultures, very different physical appearances as well. Or my buddy James, he's from Nunavut territory, so he's a Inuit person. So again, he looks very different from me, and some of his physiology is even a little bit different from me as well. Being evolved for so long on the raw meat diet that they have up there, with so few vegetables that they have access to, his physiology is even different. A lot of people in Southeast Asia, for example, are lactose intolerant, whereas most Europeans don't have any problem with lactose. So that's another difference, that a subtle difference you can bring in, but not a major one. So I try to keep it very subtle in the physiological differences. So anyway, I'm going to come back now to let's come back to the government. So I tend to make the High Elves largely a megocracy, meaning that they are run and ruled by sorcerer kings or witch kings. Their leaders have to be powerful wizards or archmages. Of course, the elves only consider you a archmage once you've mastered all schools of magic. Human beings, we don't live as long, so we are pretty much cool with you knowing one school of magic, and you're an archmage as far as we're concerned. You're a wizard. You're great. For an elf, that's not really very impressive. They have to learn every single school of magic before they'll be accepted as archmage. So that does again reflect some physiological differences, as they do live longer, about twice as long. But it also reflects their different schooling system, their different culture that's geared more towards learning than the human cultures that I have in my game. So the two can work together to keep it still be realistic. So now I'm trying to think. I believe that we ended up coming through with there is a royal family, and a prerequisite though is very strict for the elves, that you have to be from the royal family, and you have to be an archmage, and you have to consider a line of succession to actually go in and become the king of the elves, or queen of the elves. Actually, the only elven setting that the only time we've used these elves, they actually had a queen, and she was a pretty strong character as well, very complex character, as befits someone who's 150 years old and looks like they're only 50. For their military, actually this is one of the fun parts of the High Elves for me. This is my main gimmick on them, is that militarily the elf tree itself is defended by an elite squadron of giant eagle mounted knights, the Eagle Knights of the High Elves. So they have great eyries grown into the upper boughs of the alftrees, where they breed and raise and train these giant eagles. And each elf that comes through trains to be a warrior, trains to ride the giant eagles. He has to essentially raise his own eagle right from hatching, that they imprint upon each other almost telepathically. And it's an incredibly close bond. And this moves that elf from the core of elven society, and he removes himself from that society and becomes more animalistic in order to protect that society, which I think is a great source of pathos in the game. Great storylines can be spun out of that. I also brought in a smaller group of giant owl riding knights. They're even more removed from the standard uh, eagle knight, as they fly during the night and they protect the elven kingdoms during the night. So they've seen much more horrible things go down. There are terrors that lurk in the night. And these owl knights are the ones who have to deal with them. They're kind of the first and the last line of defense, yet they're a smaller force. They're more elite. They're more mysterious. So I've had a lot of fun contrasting the owl knights, the eagle knights, and their kind of begrudging respect for each other, because they know they both need the other. Uh, so I've had a lot of fun exploring that dynamic. And also you get to bring in aerial combat, which is tremendously fun, and just flying in chase scenes. It's just great. Of course, for these Eagle Knights and Owl Knights, their primary weapon is going to be a composite bow, because you can't really engage in melee in the air. It's just it would cause both parties to crash. It seems very illogical that it would. So they tend to be the finest archers in the world, as they can fire their composite bows from the backs of their mounts in the heat of battle and still hit their targets and not fall out of the saddle. So that requires a tremendous degree of skill. And they're highly respected and revered. There are legends told of them all over the world. So that's their main military force, and it's supplemented by, of course, some battle mages, and as well, wood elves will come to their aid, and we'll discuss probably the relationship wood elves have with high elves in more detail in the wood elf video. They're going to get their own video. So as far as mercantilism, their commerce, their economy, now, they already provide all their own food. It's just there to reach out and take. So commerce is more of a luxury for them. It's not really a necessity. As an elf, you can legitimately just kind of spend all day engaging in those pursuits which you're interested in, whether that's education, martial pursuits, storytelling, praying to the gods, whatever it is that you want to do. You know, you basically can do that and not have to worry about feeding yourself, which allows a tremendous degree of specialization in elven society. But some elves do engage in trade. There are goods that they do not or cannot produce that other cultures can, that they're interested in, especially metal, as the elves, although they make a strong effort towards gathering mithril, they're not really interested in putting the effort in for other metals. So they'll trade with the dwarfs for iron, perhaps for adamantine as well. Also, different foodstuffs they might not have access to would be fairly exotic for them, such as ale from humans, or beef from humans, pork from humans, or dwarfs can provide them with goat and mutton, which they wouldn't otherwise get. Of course, dwarven mead is held in very high regard all over the world. It's even superior to elven mead, although the elves are unquestionably the masters of wine. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to trade for. Any kind of wood product they tend to gather naturally, so they don't practice lumberjacking per se. They don't really cut trees down, but once a tree is cut down or it's struck by lightning, then they'll harvest that wood. Now this is not as much of a deficit as it seems, since they have the magical ability to sculpt living wood and to shape it, so they don't really require wood for their architecture, which means the wood is less important to them than it might otherwise seem. Now, of course, they do have a tremendous rivalry with orcs, because orcs love to lumberjack. They'll cut trees down. They'll just destroy a forest. So this is a huge enmity that they've had with the orcs for the last age or 2 ages. And this, of course, led to the creation of the drow and dark elves, who most people would call goblins. You can see the video on goblins for more on that information. I'll go into their religious practices. So the elves are very shamanistic, very animistic. Some would say druidic, whereas they have a strong sense of nature and of fitting in and of being in balance with nature. And I think this is perhaps best reflected in their funeral customs. In my game, elves, when they die, the other elves will bury them in a sacred grove of trees somewhere in the forest. And they'll plant the seed of a tree in their chest, in their heart, as they bury them. So this tree can grow up out of them, and they can become one with that tree and one with the forest. These trees are called soul trees, and it's a special kind of tree, and they have silver bark and red leaves. Very, very much, now that I think about it, like the were trees from Game of Thrones, from A Song of Ice and Fire. And these trees, in fact, have a slight telepathic ability that they do retain an echo of the person, of the elf whose skeleton went into creating it. So these groves, you'll be walking through the forest, and you'll suddenly come upon this entire section of silver trees with red leaves, blood red leaves, blood red sap. I'm stealing the were tree, George R.R. Martin. I'm stealing it because it's a great idea. So this can be very disconcerting, very eerie for people who don't know what it is, for humans or even orcs that don't know what it is. And, sleeping there, of course, will open up your mind even more to the telepathic suggestions and whispers and memories of all of these souls that have been buried here. And just walking through it, you'd find your mind drifting off to far places from the past. So I think that's a great thing that you can plug into an elven forest, in addition to the elf tree itself and the eagle knights patrolling overhead. Now again, this brings back to the orcs, though, because the orcs don't know what these trees are, and they lumberjack everything. So the orcs will cut these trees down and use them for firewood, and the elves don't front to that at all. So again, this can be a big inciting incident. I could even see a great storyline where humans just start lumberjacking these trees, and they don't know any better. And then the elves come in with a furious vengeance. They get wood elves just charging them on the back of elks, while the eagle knights and owl knights fly overhead, loosing arrows. And we can get some elven battle mages in there as well. So again, this location opens up a lot of storylines as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I need to discuss regarding the elves. I mean, the arts are very important to them: music, poetry, storytelling, tapestry weaving, especially out of silk. So artistic pursuits, tremendously important to them. Dancing, elven dance, is held in very, very high regard as well. So they're very cultured, very sophisticated people. They're very snobbish towards the rest of the world. They pretty much look down on everyone as being beneath them, inferior to them, the elves. The true elves, that is. In my game, they actually call themselves the Eldar, whereas the wood elves are known as the Eladrin. So that's I should have mentioned that right at the start of the video, because I love playing around with names in my game. The goblins are also the drow, which are also known as dark elves or hobgoblins, but they're all the same thing. Same thing with the dwarfs. The dwarfs are known variously as the dwarf, the khazad, the dvergar, and gnomes. Elves call dwarfs gnomes. That's the elvish word for their species. So I love playing around with languages and different names and blending some of these assumptions together as well. The orcs are also Uruk, The trolls are also orog, or perhaps that was ogres. Ogres are orog. But you can, and of course, this is just how I do it. Steal the parts you like, steal the best parts, and forget about all the rest of it. It's probably not important. So I'm trying to think. I think that covers pretty much everything that I wanted to for the High Elves. They do have somewhat of a relationship with sprites or pixies or fairies, excuse me, in my game. But I'll save that for a racial ecology video on the sprites themselves. So for right now, I'm going to be signing off. I encourage you all, please tell me how you do elves in your game, High Elves in your game, so I can steal your good ideas, because I need more good ideas all the time, or else I'll get dull, and nobody wants to be dull. Cheers.